The first time Adam moved into his new home, he thought it was going to be a peaceful chapter of his life. The house was small but charming, with a garden he planned to fill with roses and a porch where he could sip coffee in the mornings. He had saved for years to finally own a place of his own, and when he turned the key in the lock for the first time, he smiled, thinking he had found a sanctuary. That feeling didn't last long. The neighbors, the Martins, were trouble from day one. They lived directly next door, a couple in their late 40s with a son who still acted like a spoiled teenager despite being in his 20s. At first, Adam thought they were just unfriendly. He waved, they turned their heads. He tried to introduce himself, they brushed him off. But soon, their hostility became impossible to ignore. Every morning, he would wake up to find garbage tossed into his yard. It wasn't an accident. It was deliberate, messy, and disgusting. Old food scraps, bottles, and sometimes even broken glass were scattered across his freshly cut lawn. At night, their dog barked endlessly, keeping him awake until the early hours. When he politely asked them to quiet the dog down, they laughed in his face. The son, especially, seemed to take pleasure in tormenting him, blasting music late at night and mocking Adam whenever he passed by. At first, Adam tried to ignore it. He told himself it wasn't worth the trouble. But the harassment grew worse. They parked their car in front of his driveway, blocking him in. They let their dog run loose in his garden, trampling the flowers he had just planted. Once, he even found graffiti sprayed on his fence, childish words meant to taunt him. He reported some incidents, but the Martins always found a way to wriggle out of responsibility. It was a game to them, and Adam was the target. Months passed, and Adam's dream home had become a place of misery. But as much as he hated the situation, he refused to give up. Deep down, he was patient, clever, and far more resilient than they imagined. He decided he wouldn't just endure their abuse. He would end it, and he would do it in a way that would sting them more than any angry confrontation ever could. Adam worked quietly, watching and waiting. He started documenting everything: photos of the trash, videos of the dog running wild, recordings of the blaring music and shouted insults. He kept a log, marking dates, times, and details. The Martins thought they were untouchable, but Adam was building a case brick by brick, one they would never see coming. But his revenge wasn't just about paperwork. He wanted them to feel the same helplessness they had forced on him. So he began with small, clever tricks. He installed motion-activated sprinklers along his lawn. Every time their son tried to sneak over and throw garbage, he was blasted with water. The laughter from the Martins' porch quickly turned to curses when it kept happening. Adam never said a word, only waved politely from his porch. Then he put up security cameras, big, obvious ones. The Martins hated it, yelling that he was spying on them, but they couldn't do anything about it. And the cameras weren't just for show. Adam uploaded the evidence to a neighborhood forum, exposing the family's behavior for all the neighbors to see. The Martins, once smug and bold, began to notice the stares and whispers around the block. Their reputation was unraveling. Finally, when he had gathered months of undeniable proof, Adam filed an official complaint. Not just to the police, but to the Homeowners Association, the City Council, and Animal Control for their neglected dog. One by one, the consequences began to land. Fines for noise violations, orders to restrain their dog, a formal notice for property damage. Each letter they received made their arrogance crack a little more. The breaking point came when the Martin son, furious at being caught on camera vandalizing Adam's fence, lashed out publicly. He screamed in the street, throwing things in a tantrum, while Adam stood calmly with his phone recording. That video spread like wildfire in the community, turning their mockery into humiliation. Within weeks, their once untouchable confidence had shattered. They stopped throwing trash. The late-night music died down. The dog was kept indoors. Slowly, they became the very thing they once hated: silent, isolated, and scorned by their neighbors. Adam never raised his voice, never threatened them, never sank to their level. His revenge was quiet, patient, and devastatingly effective. By the time it was over, the Martins couldn't look him in the eye, and their son avoided leaving the house altogether. Every morning after, Adam sipped his coffee on his porch, watching his garden bloom again. The air was calm, the nights were quiet, and for the first time since moving in, his home felt like the sanctuary he had dreamed of. The sweetest part of all wasn't just that his life was peaceful again. It was knowing that the Martins would never forget how the neighbor they tried to break had outsmarted them completely. Adam had always been the kind of man who preferred peace over conflict, but the Martins seemed to thrive on war. The harassment didn't just stop at noise, trash, and vandalism. It escalated into something almost personal. One afternoon, Adam returned from work to find deep scratches carved into the side of his car. Another time, his mailbox was smashed to pieces, its contents scattered down the street. He knew it was them. The son had laughed as Adam picked up the mail, muttering, "Welcome to the neighborhood," loud enough to be heard. Every fiber of Adam's being wanted to lash out, to storm onto their porch and scream. But he didn't. He smiled instead, and that smile made the Martins furious. It was in that moment Adam realized he didn't just want to stop them. He wanted them to feel powerless, to know that every cruel thing they had done would come back to them twice as hard. The Martins weren't just careless, they were sloppy. Their son, Jake, liked to brag. At night, drunk with his friends, he boasted loudly about throwing trash into Adam's yard, about smashing the mailbox, about how his parents would always cover for him. Adam, sitting quietly on his porch with a cup of tea, listened and recorded every word on his phone. Weeks turned into months, and Adam's collection of evidence grew thick. Photos, videos, audio recordings, reports filed with dates and times. He spoke with other neighbors too, discreetly, and found out the Martins had caused problems for nearly everyone in the block. They weren't just his tormentors. They were the street's bullies. People had just grown too tired or too scared to fight back. But Adam wasn't tired. He was calculating. One Friday evening, the tipping point came. Adam returned home to find his entire garden destroyed, roses trampled, soil kicked up, the fence smashed in. At the center of the mess was a beer bottle with Jake's fingerprints all over it. That night, instead of rage, Adam felt something colder, sharper. Revenge had never tasted so near. The next morning, Adam began executing his plan. He printed out some of the photos and slid them into the mailboxes of every neighbor on the street. Within hours, whispers spread. People began to talk openly, complaining about years of abuse, united in their frustration. Suddenly, it wasn't Adam against the Martins, it was the entire neighborhood. Then came the knockout strike. Adam compiled everything: photos of vandalism, videos of the garbage tossing, audio of Jake confessing, and testimonies from neighbors, and handed it to the police. He also sent copies to the Homeowners Association and even posted some evidence anonymously online. Within days, the Martins were drowning in citations, fines, and furious knocks at their door. But Adam wasn't done. He had one last move, one that would strip away whatever dignity they had left. At the next neighborhood association meeting, Adam stood before everyone and calmly presented his case. The room buzzed with outrage, neighbors shouting about their own experiences with the Martins. And then, Adam played the recording of Jake bragging about his crimes. The Martins sat there, red-faced and silent, as their lies unraveled. Jake tried to storm out, but the damage was done. Their smugness, their sneers, their laughter, it all turned to shame. They were humiliated, cornered, and worst of all, powerless. From that night forward, the Martins were a ghost of what they once were. No more loud music. No more garbage. No more smug son leaning over the fence to taunt Adam. Their home grew quiet, their blinds stayed shut, and the family who once terrorized the neighborhood became outcasts in their own street. Adam never gloated, never shouted, never rubbed it in. He didn't need to. His silence was victory enough. Sitting on his porch, sipping coffee as his new roses bloomed again, he felt the sweet satisfaction of justice. The Martins had made his life miserable, but his revenge, precise, patient, and merciless, had broken them in a way they would never forget. The Martins thought the storm would pass. They assumed Adam would tire out or the neighborhood would forget, just as they had in the past. But this time, things were different. Adam hadn't just exposed them. He had set an entire chain of consequences in motion, and it was only the beginning. Fines piled up faster than the Martins could pay. The city issued repeated citations for noise and property damage, each one backed by Adam's airtight evidence. The Homeowners Association slapped them with penalty after penalty, and when they tried to appeal, the board, fed up with years of complaints, shut them down without sympathy. Then came animal control. Adam's videos of the neglected dog, left barking outside in the cold, reached the right authorities. The Martins' beloved but mistreated pet was taken from them. The day the officers arrived, leading the dog gently into a van, Adam stood on his porch and gave a small nod. The Martins screamed and cursed, but it didn't matter. The neighborhood watched in silence, not one person stepping up to defend them. Jake, their arrogant son, grew reckless. Embarrassed by the humiliation and desperate to reclaim some sense of power, he doubled down on his petty crimes. But Adam was ready. The next time Jake tried to key Adam's car, he was caught red-handed, not just by Adam's cameras, but by two neighbors who had grown sick of the Martins' antics. When the police came, Adam calmly handed over crystal-clear footage. Jake was arrested that night. His mugshot made it online, circulated by gleeful neighbors who remembered every cruel laugh and late-night party. His reputation crumbled. Even his friends stopped coming around. For the Martins, that was the breaking point. Their carefully constructed facade of superiority collapsed. They stopped leaving their house, blinds always drawn, lawn overgrown. Rumors spread that they were drowning in debt, struggling to keep up with fines and legal fees. Their once pristine image was now a stain on the entire block. Adam, meanwhile, thrived. His garden was more beautiful than ever, roses climbing over a freshly painted fence. Neighbors who had once avoided conflict now waved warmly, even stopping by to thank him for standing up when no one else could. For the first time since moving in, Adam felt like he truly belonged. The Martins' end came quietly, almost pitifully. One early morning, Adam noticed a moving truck parked in front of their house. He watched from his porch as they loaded their belongings, their faces pale and defeated. Jake didn't even look up. They left without a word, their house standing empty by sundown. As the truck disappeared down the street, Adam felt no pity, only a deep, satisfying calm. They had made his life a nightmare, but in the end, they were the ones driven out, chased by their own cruelty and arrogance. That night, the neighborhood gathered in Adam's backyard for a small celebration. Laughter and conversation filled the air, where once there had only been tension and hostility. Someone raised a toast to Adam, the man who had turned quiet patience into the sweetest revenge. Adam didn't boast, didn't gloat. He only smiled, sipping his drink as he looked at the stars above his peaceful home. For him, revenge wasn't loud or violent. It was steady, meticulous, and devastating. The Martins had thought they could break him. Instead, he had broken them. And every rose that bloomed in his garden stood as a reminder. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about anger. It's about outlasting your enemies until they destroy themselves.